Director for Foundation Relations here at UNT. I've been with the university about 18 months, and prior to my arrival, there was a gap in Foundation Relations as terms of prioritization for the university. And so what that does is it puts us a little bit behind in being on the radar of some of the prominent foundations. And so we're working to get on the radar of the local and position us for some of those large national foundation opportunities. And what I found in kind of my tour of my first 9 months of what's happening on campus, there's a lot of new faces. We have a lot of new deans, we have a lot of new faculty, and really not a clear understanding of what resources are available and where do I go for what and when. So that's what I'm trying to accomplish today. I know some of you, Fabiana, you're ahead of me and digging deeper, and so we've talked about what does a 2.0 session look like when we really want to dig in and say, how do we craft it? How does it sound? How do we really build the strategic business plan? We're not going to get into that too much today, but if there's an interest, that's feedback I would love to hear too, because I'm taking time out of your valuable calendar. So I'm going to have my team introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Erin Smith. I'm the Director of Foundation Relations Communications. In my role, I sort of handle all of the logistics of actual grant submissions, depending on the giving level, anywhere from basic proofing all the way up to a full writing of the actual proposal itself, and any other sort of great communication needs from our office. And I get to work with a lot of our wonderful faculty and staff to help sort of formalize their concepts, make them more strategic, really flesh out the full planning process. So that's what I do in my role. So I've been doing that for about 1.5 years, and prior to that, I was working in the College of Music as a development officer. And even prior to that, I worked at Fort Worth Opera in institutional development and annual giving. So just a little bit about my background. Really happy to be here. I love UNT, so look forward to working with you all.
My name is Shannon Drury. I am the Office of Foundation Relations Coordinator. So I manage a lot of the operations in our office, and if you call our office, I'll pick up. Call me.
Yes. Yeah, so I know many of you in the room. Can we just do a quick round so I can get a feel for who's who, and you all can see too who's in the room. Can I start with you, Dr. Bland?
Sure. I'm Bob Bland, and I'm a professor in the Department of Public Administration.
Okay.
And I'm Dorothy Bland, his sister.
I was adopted.
Clearly, oh yeah, this is the Bland cohort. I'm the dean for the journalism school here.
I'm Naomi. I am the Research Connect person on campus. I'm in the Office of Grants and Contracts.
If you don't know Naomi, you should. She's amazing and an awesome resource for the university, and she will talk a little bit about the resource that she kind of spearheads, but thank you.
And my name is Layla. I'm with the College of Education Research Office. They just created a pre-award analyst for College of Education, and I took that role 3 weeks ago. So.
From the College of Engineering.
From the College of Engineering.
You have some of that institutional knowledge.
Right. So foundations is new to me, and I learned a lot of College of Education faculty. They like to work with the foundations and receive money from them. So I'm here to learn.
Thank you, Sonia.
I'm Sonia Vasquez. I work in advancement with the Office of Gift Administration.
Thank you.
I'm Xiaohu from Computer Science and Community Department.
Thank you.
I'm Fabiana Clara, Director of Career Development and Entrepreneurship in Music at the College of Music.
And I'm Jen Guzman, and I'm a teaching fellow in music entrepreneurship.
I'm doctoral candidate. Yes. Sorry.
Hi everyone, I'm Eileen Moran. I'm the Associate Vice President for Development.
If you don't like anything I say, tell me. Don't tell her. If you love everything I say, tell them. Only good things. So yeah.
I'm Jacqueline Vickery. I'm an assistant professor in media arts.
Great.
I'm a first-year MFA student, and Jacqueline's Murray.
Great.
We want money.
Good.
That's why we're here. Yeah.
Yes.
Ryan Olson, Kinesiology Health Promotion. So I'm College of Education. I'm kind of new faculty learning the process of foundation.
I got to hang out with the kinesiology folks last night.
Oh yeah.
Hi, Gürse Çikin, Assistant Professor, Department of Sociology.
Great. Great, so it's a very diverse group, which we have a very diverse campus, which is why this is just kind of the baseline knowledge that we're going to hopefully set today. I didn't tell you a little bit about my background. I worked for the I'm an Indiana University alum. Moved to Texas 5 years ago. I worked for the American Heart Association for 15 years. I led the Dallas market. I love the art of finding funding because there are really great people, really great organizations that want to invest in great ideas and connecting those with the great ideas and the amazing impact and outcome that can come from that. So I think I have the very best job on campus because I only deal with the greatest projects, right? I only deal with the greatest funders with the highest missions and values. So my area of focus is on six-figure gifts and above. And so anyway, I love what I do. I worked as a consultant for about a year and then joined UNT. So it's a great time to be at UNT. You all know this, but I feel like sometimes we can get caught up in the day-to-day and forget. We have a very visionary, proactive president. We have an amazing VP of advancement that has my back in many instances and helps pave the way and not get in the way. So when I think about the timing of foundation relations as it grows, when you look at philanthropic gifts in the country and you look at the pie chart, individual giving, corporate giving, foundation giving, the pie chart of foundation giving continues to grow to be a bigger percentage of the GDP. So we need to be relevant in this space. We have to be relevant in this space. As national grants, NSF, NIH, this team can tell you, under this administration, those dollars will continue to go down. And that's where private philanthropic donors step up. They really do in a big way in corporate dollars. So we're focused on foundations. So I'll get started. So this is who we are. It's a three-man team. We support the university, and we are excited to be part of this role. We also liaison pretty significantly between the Office of Grants and Sponsored Projects and Foundation Relations. So if you're pursuing a gift that has to go through a 501c3, we can be that connector for you. So these are our goals. We want to support the faculty, leadership, president, provost. Those are the priorities, and really serve as a liaison. So the things I want to cover today, if you have concerns, questions, misunderstandings, preconceived notions about what is a gift, what is a grant, what is a sponsor project, you are not alone. It's a very gray area, industry-wide. So in higher ed, you can run into this, and it's still gray. I have, in one of the three handouts, we have the UNT's statement on what is a gift, what is a grant. And we got rid of a lot of the objective conversation around how do you define it. And this is based on IRS code. So you are welcome to review the IRS tax code. You can still see under the terms unacceptable, there's still a little bit of gray. So what I say is I'm a resource to help navigate that. My job is to help support you in being successful for any submission and remove any potential roadblock, and Brett Proviak and OGCA feels the exact same way. So you can go to either office and we will make sure you get to the right place to make sure that it's submitted with the proper information. So I want to cover our services and resources, give you a little bit of information about TRIP, and then Erin's an amazing writer. She undersells herself. She's really good at taking sometimes what is our scientific speak and translate it to what non-scientific readers may understand. So she's a great resource, and she's going to give you some tips. So the collaboration between our two offices, the Office of Advancement and the Office of Grants and Sponsored Projects, is critical. And I'm so pleased with where we are today. It is very customer service focused. So if you all are our customers in aggressively pursuing funds for this university and our great projects, we are on the same page in doing that. And it really depends on how things are defined. So we can talk about advancements really focused on revenue generation. The Office of Sponsored Projects is focused on expenditures. So it's money, it's revenue that's been realized, and you expend it against an agreement. It behaves very differently. The legalities around it are very different, and it's our job to help you figure that out. So if that's a point of clarification you need, there are lots of resources, so contact either office. And then, who's familiar with TRIP? Anyone? Oh, good. The fact that that's not 100% though is the concerning part. So TRIP has been around since 2008. It's a state match The state of Texas was really focused on ending the brain bleed of talent to Boston and the West Coast in terms of research. And so the government put in place TRIP, which is the Texas Research Incentive Program. Oh, sorry, I gotta have to go to TRIP. Thank you. The Texas Research Incentive Program, which is a matching gift opportunity for any gift over 6 figures. So keep this in the back of your mind. The 2 triggers that I would ask you to think about is it must be a lump sum, of, at least one time lump sum of $100,000 if it's paid out at one time. So if it's $1 million and you get paid out $100,000 every month, it would still be eligible. If it's $100,000 paid out in $20,000 increments, it would not be eligible. So it's really important to think about your payment schedule, how you negotiate that on the front end in order for it to be eligible. That's where we've been missing the boat in some of our competitive universities. It must be a private donation. Private would be defined as anything non-governmental in this category. So as long as it's not NIH, NSF, NEA, is that right? NEA? Yeah. Any of those categories, as long as it's also not a subcontract from another university, which is a governmental entity, that would not make it eligible. And then it must contain specific language. And I will say that's a little bit of a moving target. It's a little bit nuanced based on the THUCB. So reach out to us. We are your resource for that. If you find yourself even thinking $100,000 or more, make that a trigger just to give us a call and we'll help you navigate that. Okay, sorry. So this is what we offer. If you want to, when you think about foundation relations, this is where you can expect, demand, call me out if we're not, providing support. So under $25,000, we are, I don't want to use gatekeeper, but we are the coordinator for the university. So there are many foundations that accept 1 request a year. And we have to look professional in this space or we're going to if we get 10 from one university all over the place, we're going to completely be disregarded across the board. So our job is to say, we have a strategy around that, we have recently submitted, we're eligible. So we're kind of the clearinghouse for the limited submissions. And I'm going to say a big majority of them are. So under $25,000, you can count on us to be clear the path for you or say, let's hold this and prepare for the next cycle. We will do any final edits should you ask us and provide any supportive documentation. So if you need operating statements, the past 990, any tax forms, any of that stuff, we will attach and help you submit. So we can attach it and you submit or either way. But the final product, I do keep a record of that. So if you submit anything to any foundation, I want to make sure that I have that in our library. So really under $25,000, we're just helping you get it out the door. Over $25,000, if you want to talk about, the proposal concept, I'm thinking this, I'm happy to help you say or consider there are pockets of money. There are foundations, there are trends, really based on what happens in the government. There's a lot of money available right now in the state of Texas around the 60 by 30. So the state of Texas, if you're not familiar, is the 60 by 30 plan. We want to have 60% of the population, eligible population, have some form of post-secondary education by 2030. So we can debate whether or not that is something you support and how those certificates are eligible. Regardless, it's something that the state is focused on, and we have a big gap to accomplish that. So there's money being focused on from the charitable organizations that really support our government agenda. So I can, you can come to me with a concept that's over here, and if we tweak it a little bit to make it focused on those outcomes, we may be successful. So that's where I can help you with concept or just give you a feel for where I think funding is available right now and what I'm seeing. And again, we'll help with the proposal submission and supporting documentation. Once we get to over $100,000, that's where I want to talk about the budget. I want to make sure I will invest a lot more time in saying how can we, there's no indirect costs built in your budget if it's an advancement, but how do we make sure there's enough, so it's not indirect, but how do you make sure that you have enough operational funding in the way you're proposing it? So there's a little bit more flexibility in saying, I want to make sure I'm setting up this clinic for speech therapy poor Dr. Corey isn't here, but we've been talking about that budget. She says, I really just want a graduate student. And so she sends me a budget for a graduate student. Well, philanthropic entities will consider $100,000. And in that budget, in your mindset, you can talk about, in addition to just hiring the graduate students, let's focus on the outcomes that you're funding, which is a different mindset. So we're going to focus on, we need $10,000 to conduct research, we need $10,000 to support their computer overhead, whatever. And it does not need to be as detailed as the budget builder, thank you, from OGCA, or grant builder, from OGCA, but it's same principles, you just categorize it in different areas, and so we can help build that at that level. And then over $1 million, really to be in the space of $1 million gifts, we need to be very collaborative, and I know you all have a million things on your plate, and collaboration is sometimes difficult to fit in, and so I'm happy to help facilitate, bring together the players that really can put together a $1 million plus idea. So here are some resources that we have available. Prospect research tools, concept strategy sessions where we can talk through what would be the best way to position your idea. We have some grant funding templates. We have a website, which we did in the spring. It is not as beautiful as Naomi's website, and that's my hope, but we have it. And here's the link. Do you want to click on that? There is something I want to show them real quick. So right now it says corporations and foundations. This is specific to foundations. If you scroll down, this kind of reiterates some of the things we're talking about, but keep going all the way. So here are some funding opportunities. This is what Naomi's doing really well, being more proactive and sharing opportunities that are coming up. So if you'll click, we have posted some foundations that are, almost all of them are limited submissions in terms of we can submit one idea a year or one concept a year. But me going out and peddling and trying to find and determine what that best idea is, my goal in the next few months will be to put these out here and let's see what ideas we can have bubble up and let's get our really best ideas out there. So here are 5 foundations. Lyda Hill, we can submit concepts at any time. She has a very strategic vision, and she's an amazing Dallas native Hunt family descendant that has a lot of money. She cares a lot about science. The Kresge Foundation, they're a national organization, but in order for us to be competing for some of these national dollars, we need to be aware of them. And so they have RFPs, depending on their bucket. They have RFPs under environment, it's closed, some RFPs in education. So they vary on when they submit these. If you work with Naomi in the Pivot tool, she can help you put triggers in to identify you when there are new ideas. Michael and Susan Dell Foundation, it's really K through 12 education is their focus. Charles Koch Foundation is Republican focused research funding. I know, I cringe because I know that, sometimes people will say, I don't want to take money from the other side. But I think it's all money, so why not? But they do have active RFPs out, 5 of them right now, and I think we've submitted a couple. We've been successful in one in a nuanced way. Scott Belshaw in the Department of Criminal Justice and HPS submitted a concept, and they didn't want to fund what we submitted, but they wanted to fund something else that he was working on. So they do their homework, and so we can talk through that. And then Hearst Foundation is a Dallas Foundation. It's limited submission. Ken Hurst just invested $34 million in esports, which I know is involved in our libraries. He's very prominent. They're really an amazing couple. So things that I think we should need to be in the space on. And I will continue to try to update this and put more opportunities out there. But I wanted to mention that. And again, my goal will be to make it look like Naomi's page.
My husband works in URCM, so he helped me. I can't take any credit.
You should totally take credit. Okay, so we can go back to the presentation. And then, my job is to have good relationships and a good understanding of what is the current climate at a foundation. And I find you could go to the Meadows Foundation and they have a 2030 strategic plan and all of their priorities. But they're tricky. They have a 30-member board, and it depends on the mood and the temperament of the board and who showed up to the last board meeting and what the focus is. And so it's my job to have the finger on the pulse of what's the right timing. And then staff and faculty workshops. We've done 2 campus-wide. We do a lot more department level where we can make it more specific, or college level, we can make it more specific. And then we'll support you in trips, post-gift reporting. Yes, it's very different than managing expenditures. It's saying when the term of the grant is up, we want to send an ROI statement or a quick report saying you invested in this and look at the tremendous impact you're having. And so that's where we can support you. And then obviously trip submission. We talked about that? Yep. So here's what I would challenge you. You're thinking about foundation funding and you have an idea. You want to do something associated with autism and you care passionately about it and you want to have a big impact and you need funding. You need to be doing something. You need to have your portfolio full. So how do you think about making that fundable? Because oftentimes my first sit down with the faculty, it's not a fundable concept from a foundation. And so I would think about how is this going to impact an audience? So I want to do something in autism. I want to provide services, or I want to do a study, and I need to know, why is this different than other autism services in the community? Why will this piggyback on existing autism services? Because, maybe an existing autism service goes until you graduate high school and then there's nothing, which is very likely. I need to understand how you're going to collaborate and be the continuum. I need to understand why the project is going to improve outcomes, why you're going to make this autistic person employable, why, we need to understand what's the measurable outcome of that. Because Erin is a billionaire, and she's in her 80s, and she cares about autism and pets and social services. And she wants her family to be proud of the legacy that's been created. She's not going to be interested in funding an autistic service that is already duplicated in 15 other places in the community. She wants to invest in an autistic service that is going to change the life, shift the paradigm, innovate an idea or concept that could prove to be a best practice when published. It's got to be different. It's got to be unique. It's got to be strategic, innovative, pushing the paradigm. And we have the talent. It's articulating that and doing the work to prepare. So also, $1 million from the foundation. Foundations look at, they're really responsible, used to be funders, givers, philanthropists, and now I will say they're really responsible investors. So it's social investing, and they realize that if I'm a small mom and pop 501c3, and I give this organization $1 million, it could sink them. Their inability to execute without the infrastructure could sink them. So, if I wanted to give Naomi $1 million because she was going to do this great vision, they're going to do their homework to make sure Naomi can actually execute and has the wherewithal, the skill, all of the infrastructure to be able to do that. That is not often, from a foundation perspective, it's not often one person. It's going to be a collaborative, interconnected vision. So just make sure your gift meets what the outcome is, not your gift meeting the budget need. So sometimes we have to say, it's really going to cost me $1 million. I think I can get a $25,000 gift. I think I can, whatever the goal is. So sometimes we have to build a more robust plan on how to get to that outcome. And so we can help you with that. And then these are the buzzwords. I don't look up many foundations that don't have one of these words. How is it sustainable? So Erin and her billionaire legacy, she's going to invest $1 million in the University of North Texas. And when that $1 million runs out, what do we have to show for it? Oh, the whole autistic services just implodes. That's not what the legacy is that she's looking for. She wants to know what portion of it's going to be institutionalized, what portion of it is going to be set up as a for-profit entity. There's a lot of ways to get that. What portion of the ask is endowed? That's okay too. So we just have to think through sustainability. Transformational, innovative, creative in your results, collaborative, metrics-based outcomes. Sometimes the sustainability plan is, or the outcomes are, I have an idea, I want you to fund me so I can investigate that idea, and then my outcome is not really that this idea is going to change people's lives, although that is a good way. You can also say the outcome is, I'm going to go to 3 conferences, I'm going to publish these results, and I'm going to make this known in this community. So there are a lot of outcomes that we can structure. How do you research funders? So I think it's important to really ask yourself some questions going into it. What is your concept? How is it unique? Private family foundations behave differently than corporate foundations. Corporate foundations are giving you money, and we want to see an outcome, and we want to know how can we publish how great we were for investing in you, right? They're looking for the PR angle. Family foundations are investing in legacies, most often. There are obviously nuances to this, but these are generalizations. What is your financial need? Make sure you can justify it. And I'm pretty good at spinning things to be justifiable. I just need to know what your full need is. Which foundations are you interested in the type of, some foundations are interested in research, some foundations are interested in projects and services. So basic research, there's a pot of foundations funding available. Programs and services, and a lot of entities, there's a lot of foundations available. What I find is that efficacy research is hard to fund. I don't know. I haven't figured out maybe the right angle yet, but if you're trying to do research that's almost like efficacy, the services research, or what's the word I'm trying to think of? Applied research, if you have an engineering concept and it's not quite ready for the tech transfer, licensing, patent, spin-off space, but you've already tried it here, that space, it's where you start to intermix with angel investors or venture capitalists. And so that's when we bring in Mike Rondelli, who works in the Office of Research. So that's just an overview. And then how we measure the success. So again, they're investors, they're looking for outcomes, and they want to own an impact that they're going to have in the legacy they're creating. Okay. So discovering RFPs. We have a few resources. This could expand going forward if we can justify it, but this advancement has tools around foundation search, and it's just a tool where I can go in and do some history, do some research on existing foundations. We all have access to it. Its only con is it's a little bit dated. It pulls all of its information from a 990, which is great historical, where have they been? But the family could have changed generations in the 2 years since that 990 is being pulled from, and their focus could have changed considerably. So this, in conjunction with another tool, is a great tool, even just their website. So Pivot, Naomi, would you share?
Yeah, Pivot is a great tool. The Vice President of Research got us a license or a subscription to Pivot in 2015, so we all have access to it. You sign up with your UNT email, or you can do quick searches without even having to log in, but it shows you comprehensive funding information on foundations, nonprofits, research, fellowships, scholarships, the whole gamut of funding. And so we're really trying to get everyone to use this tool because it also has the profiles. It pretty much auto-populates profiles for faculty at our institution. Their editors go into our faculty information system and populate it so that students can see who they want to collaborate with. And it creates these algorithms, so if you are trying to collaborate with other people, it has those functions as well. It'll pair you, match you with funding opportunities. So it is a great tool. There's a lot of tools out there. This is the one that we have access to, that the VPR's office is paying for. So feel free to use it. I can train any of you, your teams, colleagues, come out to your office personally, show you how to use it. I even can curate searches and just send you a list that is exactly what you want. So yeah, it's a great tool. It gives you access to the RFPs and everything. Also, if you want to form a collaborative team, let's say you find a funding opportunity on here, and the collaboration isn't, you can't really find who you're trying to work with. I have an up-to-date list of every faculty member, lecturer, librarian on campus, and I have compiled all of their research key terms. So if you give me a couple of keywords and you want to find people in those fields to form collaborative teams, I can tell you on the spot who to work with or who to email.
What's your last name?
My last name is Wood, and I have a business card too if you want to talk to me after. My name is Naomi Wood.
So anybody have a profile set up on Pivot? Oh, I know you all do, right? So anybody else have a profile set up on Pivot yet? Perfect. You want any comments on the tool itself?
It's just set up.
Courses.
What's the significance of beginning in fall 18?
Oh, that's not right. We've had it since 2015.
Okay.
Oh,
Why
that's
did I
good to
put
know.
that up there? It was really
Yeah.
kind of, okay.
It's everyone
So that's
now.
not applicable.
It's everyone now.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. We just
Let's-
added it.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Good call. Read my slides. So here's our process. So I want to fund something, or I want to find funding. I found a foundation and I want to pursue it. Let us know. We'll help you decide if it needs to go through the foundation. I should do this flow chart. Should it go through the foundation or should it go through the university? Should it go through the Office of Sponsored Projects? Should it go through advancement? We'll help you figure that out. It is eligible for submission because it's not a limited submission, has not been applied for on campus, or someone else is applying for this, we have another concept in the strategic plan, we need to wait. So that's what we can do in step one. We can help you conduct research. Usually right now my answer is, have you met Naomi? Because she can help you set up a profile. We can help, if you have some foundations, we can vet the information that you get from Pivot with Foundation Search, that historical 990 information, and put together some really good information about how they've behaved, what have they given to historically, how much has gone to the state of Texas, or we can put a lot of that together. We will also make sure that your concept fits what they're asking. And sometimes that takes a phone call, and sometimes that takes me collaborating with Dr. Oh my gosh, Neandra, the new David Schultz.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Narendra.
I know. I'm gonna phonetically spell it out. So he replaced Dr. Schultz in the Office of Sponsored Projects. If it's scientific, I'm not gonna pretend like I have any idea what you're talking about. And that's where that collaboration comes in. So you can trust that we're gonna make sure it's scientifically reasonable. And then guidance, so helping you get to the right place. And then before we submit, we will make sure we have all the appropriate signatures based on level. Sometimes that's advancement, sometimes that's foundation, sometimes that's Dr. Smatras, sometimes that's our chancellor. So we will help get all that and get it out the door and collect all the financial documentation required. And then here's the deal though, you all are the university ambassadors. Most of the foundation visits that I go on, I'm meeting with friends that I've worked with in this career for a while. But my new thing to show them and tell them is that scientific excellence, concept excellence, the great things happening here. And so that's where we work really well together. I get to showcase the best and brightest faculty at UNT. You are advocates. You are in positions to meet with companies or have companies approach you based on your area of expertise. And so as much as I can bring resources to you, you bring resources to the university. And that's an important give and take if there are ideas. I mean, Dean Bland is very good about this. She has some great industry relationships and will say, I want to submit to this foundation. Can you help us? And so, having those, I don't know the ins and outs of the journalism industry as well as you all do, or political science, or, all of the industries. So that's where you can help us make those strategic connections. We can help formulate a great packet to submit for success. Okay. And then I want to turn over to Erin.
Okay, so I just wanted to give some general grant writing tips, try to contain your excitement. And this isn't a full crash course, I promise. I just wanted to talk about some of the trends that I see really across all the colleges and departments on campus, where I frequently have to work with a faculty member to go back and flesh out, add additional details, strategize things, just to make sure that there are no barriers to success. And like we discussed, I didn't bring any templates or anything like that today because they are all online. And really before I go into some of those nitty-gritty details, I just wanted to give really my biggest tip that we sort of touched on already, which is to really just know your audience. So again, if we're pretending that I'm a billionaire, I have had instances where I might get a concept paper or something, and I just really don't understand anything that it's saying. So I like to tell people, let's say someone's giving me an environmental science concept paper or proposal, and I'll tell them, okay, I'm a billionaire, I've set up this foundation, and my educational background is purely in music, and I took one environmental science course many, many years ago. I'm passionate about the environment, that's what I want to fund, but I don't know anything about it from like a technical standpoint. And so you really want to make sure that whatever you're writing is approachable from a diverse audience perspective. And for a lot of the foundations that we write for, they're not always, it's not really going to be the same situation as the National Science Foundation. We use a lot of buzzwords like we talked about, like transformational and innovation, and some marketing language, really big, bold goals. So, but getting more into specifics now, so I just have some notes up here for you all to consider, but in regard to the need, when you're thinking about how is the need that I'm presenting unique, really think about things like the market demand, or is there a regional food desert? Is there a prevalence of an underserved disease in the DFW area? So think about that and being able to justify that with facts and figures, and really consider that personal observations are not the same as numbers and facts and cited sources. So I've occasionally run into instances where someone says, I've observed this personally, but there's not documented research. But we need to back that up with something more concrete. And then thinking about goals and objectives, I feel like goals and objectives are, the definitions for those terms can differ depending on who you ask. So this is my approach to them. Goals are going to be your broader category, and the objectives are going to be the smaller measurable steps to meet those goals. So I think a lot about Dr. Mittler and his breast cancer research. To give some context, he has done this really amazing research where he's identifying medicines like diabetes medicines that can help treat breast cancer. And it's sort of in the early stages. But when I'm thinking of writing a proposal for that, when I think of the goal is going to be more externally focused. So transforming the prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of breast cancer. And the objectives are the smaller steps to get there. So by 2020, we will identify 25 different FDA-approved medications that target this protein. That's where you get into those specifics. And then always use language from the foundation's website. So we actually showed Lyda Hill earlier, for instance, and their mission is to make game-changing advances in science and nature. So then if I'm writing a overarching transformational goal for a project for the Lyda Hill Foundation, it's going to be something like make game-changing advances in biomedical engineering research. I'm actually pulling that direct language, and that will stick out to the people reading it. And then making sure that your need and your goal directly align. At the bottom of my goals and objectives section, I always have a statement that says that the goal of this research directly aligns with the foundation's mission because whatever that reasoning is. So we'll go to the next slide. Thinking about the details, again, I won't read through all of these, but be prepared to talk about why you or your department or your college or UNT as a whole is better equipped or better suited to take on a certain project than SMU or TCU. And sort of the way that we think about this is a lot of the foundations that we're applying to, they're in Dallas or they're in Fort Worth. And UNT might not in their mindset be our university. If they're in Fort Worth, they might be thinking TCU or UT Arlington. If they're in Dallas, they might be thinking SMU. So we need to be able to say why we are the specialized professionals in this area. And then evaluation and sustainability. From what I have heard in my experiences, these are areas that are frequently left off of a lot of grant applications unless directly asked for. So it's something that can really show that you've thought through this years in advance. So when you're thinking of evaluation, if your objectives are measurable, like we talked about, where you have a time frame set, you have numbers set, your evaluation can really fall into place pretty easily. And then as far as sustainability, we give you some questions to think through there. And also on the templates that are online, there's lots of questions that can help you guide through these components. But again, one of the biggest things I would say there is to make sure that you're having conversations with your department chair or your dean to look into the possibility of maybe even institutionalizing, meaning that after the grant term, the time frame of the grant, that maybe the college or even the university might absorb the cost of that program so that it can continue on. because foundations don't really want to provide a year of funding if it's going to go away after that year. Okay, so now I just have a good example and a bad example of sort of a case for support and needs statement that you might see. And you don't have to read through this, but this is actually taken from a real application for biomedical research. And in the green, you see basically some facts and figures that they included to make sure that they're really justifying the needs that they have. And then the purple is the actual like basic need. And as you can see in that purple, they're not saying, you know, we need, again, sorry, music background here, but we need telescopes and, you know, money and salaries and all that stuff. That's not what they're saying the need is. They're talking about the need from an external perspective. So keep that in mind as well. Next slide. This is a really overdramatic bad example of a need statement. Just basically talking about, you know, you can see they need $100,000 to support 3 animals. They're saying our organization only has enough money to support 5 dogs and 5 cats. So that makes the organization sound destitute, right?
Yeah.
So if if a funder is thinking, you know, can this organization actually accomplish what, you know, they're asking for money to do, and you write a statement like that, that doesn't look so good. So definitely just as you're looking at that, consider what's feasible. Is $100,000 for 3 animals feasible? And in this sense, I'm saying it's too much money for what you're doing. And, you know, do you have facts and figures? Again, personal observations that aren't backed up with data, those aren't really justifying your need. And again, track records matter, so don't necessarily make the organization seem destitute. On the contrary, make it seem like we're the only organization in this area that can really take on this initiative. And then finally, post-award reporting. It's really vital that grant seekers are committed to the full relationship with the foundation as opposed to just the application process. So post-grant reporting, it's not always required by foundations, but we always try to make sure that we're showing these funders the impact that their gift ultimately makes. And so be prepared to provide numbers, the evaluation that you promised that you would do in the application itself. Did you meet your goals and objectives? Things like testimonials and pictures, sort of that marketing type content, that's really amazing too for these sorts of documents. And it's really essential for stewardship. So, you know, if I write a grant application for $300,000 and I get funded, and then 6 months from now, you know, I really have stopped following through, or things got too busy, or I even left, and it's just fallen off the radar and it doesn't get reported on, that doesn't just make that professor or staff member look bad, or that college, that makes the entire university look bad. We have to rebuild the relationship, so on and so forth. So really consider the full big picture of stewardship when you start into this grant writing process.
All right. So it's Friday afternoon, and we're just giving you a lot of information, some of it you may or may not know. What are your questions? Yeah.
So you mentioned in the case of searching for angel investors and other type of sponsors, there's a different office that handles that. Could you talk to us a little bit about this research? How does that work?
You know, I feel like we're working on what as we were talking, what is the right mechanism to, you know, to make sure our faculty and students have access to those folks. It's not, that's not what this is. If you have basic research that's gotten to the, you know, past the clinical testing stage, and we really are looking at an investor to help us start up a company or spin off, Mike Rondelli, I don't know what his title is right now.
He's the VP of economic, or it used to be economic development, now it's technology transfer.
Tech transfer.
Yeah.
So he's the tech transfer person for the university. He's from UCLA, has a lot of experience in that. There is a wildcatters type mindset in the state of Texas. And when you look at angels and VCs and dollars invested throughout the country, there are 3 big places. New York, obviously, state of California, if you combine, you know, Silicon Valley and down, and then the state of Texas. The problem with the state of Texas is, You don't think about we're on the innovative entrepreneur, we're not Silicon Valley competing. But the resources of angels and VCs are spread out between Austin, Houston, and Dallas. So they're decentralized, but the resources are there. And there's definitely some hubs. There's a Denton organization that's trying to, create this mindset and spirit. It's there, it's harder to find. We're an oil and gas old culture, where Silicon Valley is a new innovative entrepreneur culture. So there's a culture shifts that the city hasn't happened. But yes, if you're going to go down the path of licenses, patents, royalties, spin-offs, startups, all of that, that is Mike. So there are definitely some foundations that it's interested in that, but it is not my area of expertise. I know enough to be dangerous. Probably like everything, yeah. So I would, if you haven't worked with him or he actually just hired someone else too, right, Stephen?
Yeah, Director of Licensing is Stephen Tudor.
Okay, he was a one-man show, and he gets pulled into a lot of things because he's a great strategic mind to help you think through things. So I know that he's sometimes hard to track down, but he has Stephen himself. Okay, yep, yeah. And then the hope is, right, that the Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship will ultimately be a great space for corporations to engage in this space in the university. And that's really where universities are doing it well. That's where Northwestern and, like we talked about, Virginia Tech and UTD has the Center of Innovation funded by the Blackstone Launchpad Initiative. And so we need to be in that space, and I think it's a good time to do that. But, I'm going to turn that back on you as the advisory board for that group. Do you have other thoughts?
No, I definitely think that once the center is up and running, it will be definitely a go-to place. It's just not there yet.
Yes.
But it's
And what we didn't cover is corporate funding, and that's something that we can add in the future. It's going to be part of my job in the coming year, but there's a lot of building that needs to be done for that. And what does that look like from strategic investing perspective for companies? And so we have some work to do, but again, it's good timing. Yeah.
It's kind of a general question about collaboration. Do you find that most of these foundations, or the big ones, are content with collaboration of different departments within the university, or are they looking for collaboration between universities or with organizations, that are not, higher ed organizations?
Both. Both. I think so I would say that they're looking at, inside the university, they're looking at something that can really be sustained. If you're a faculty member and your dean is 100% behind it, and the dean's hit by a bus, who's going to be there to make sure this is built in the fabric of I always say that tomorrow. Like tomorrow, if I get hit by a bus, have I built this so it's sustainable? And does everyone know how to, find the resources? So a little bit of that. And sometimes that is almost always too much for one person when we're talking about big investments. Now, there is definitely this social venture world that put yourself in the seat of a foundation in downtown Dallas, and you're talking about, I want to create this after-school program for underserved children. You are 1 in 50. You are 1 in 500. What makes you unique? And then what makes you unique, can you collaborate with them to build on it? So you're after school providing mentoring, you're after school providing, you're reading to them based on the age group, but this person really has some, maybe on the autism spectrum, do we have any sort of therapeutic resources or, so instead of reinventing the wheel, they look at it and say, how can I bring this together and invest more wisely? So there is definitely that interest. And we're doing that well. I'm working on some funding opportunities for the Center for Play Therapy, which we're the experts in that within our College of Education. Bachman Lake is a very underserved community in the city of Dallas.
I live right by there.
Oh, there you go. So Bachman Lake together. Lumen Education is the education mechanism to help kids get ready for going to school, going to kindergarten, starting kindergarten. And so, we were brought in because of our therapy resources. So, that's fun from someone who's not a funder, and I don't have the millions to invest. But when you see all those things come together for the greater good, it's really awesome. So when you think about what makes sense to you and what gets you excited that we can do all of this for this community, that is what they look at, especially on the social services side. I hope I answered.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
But this is very good. Thank you for putting this
Thank
together.
you.
On, typically, after an award is made, there's a grant agreement of some sort.
Yes.
Could you talk
Yeah.
through that process? I've heard that there, and what's the role of the UNT Foundation
Yeah.
in all that?
Good question. So the way that this university knows contracts, and I'm using broad blanket statements, so they may be nuanced, but this university knows contracts. So you work through the Office of Sponsor Projects and Grants and Contracts, and they write a contract, and they negotiate the contract, the company signs off on, and that's the contract. We have also worked under Dr. Robert Bland, wants to make a personal individual gift, and we have gift agreements in advancement. What we haven't worked on is every one of these foundations give money on their own terms.
That's right.
We apply,
And they issue the grant agreement.
and they issue the grant agreement. So that has been, thank you for pointing out, one of the successes over the past 18 months on when I've been here, that we sign, we agree to the terms, we will review them between my office, that's great, the implementer, and legal.
Okay.
If it comes through the university, I will consult with the Office of Sponsor Projects and make sure they're comfortable with it, or legal if they're, depending on, I guess that's really the answer. If it comes through the foundation, we have a blanket, no, I'm not gonna say blanket. We have a blanket agreement with what the foundation will receive and how they will receive it. We have updated MOUs to use the foundation as a pass-through. So we are on their terms receiving the grant. The foundation is part of the application process. They know that it's coming. The transfer of responsibility happens to the university, which is what happens in the MOU. That's where we're at right now. It's working. It's not perfect.
Okay. Well, usually there's like 2 or 3 weeks turnaround time.
Well, I actually am not that patient of a person. So if that's the case, let me know how I can help.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
sometimes, yes.
I mean, literally, really, the
Yeah.
grant will, they award the grant, they send a grant agreement, and we have 2 weeks to get it back to them.
Yes. Well, so if there's a grant agreement and expenditure reporting, so it's all, this is the gray area.
Yeah, okay.
And I
okay.
navigate, I handle each one of them personally.
Okay.
And I
all
look
right,
at
so
them.
see you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
See me, and we can say, and I will fumble through it,
Okay.
and hopefully spare you the expense of that. And everyone's a little bit different, right?
Okay,
And so,
okay.
it's on their terms, and at different levels, Neil signs them. On different levels, we take it to the chancellor, and so we have, see me if I can help with
Okay,
that.
well,
I can't make any promises, but
That's reassuring because, I mean, the flexibility here is really critical in order to be.
I love money.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I really
And most-
do. I want to find every way to get the money in the door.
Well, let me share with you something
So,
yesterday.
yeah.
A conversation with the Headliners Foundation for a project that we want to do in March for Women's History Month. She said, I like the idea. Why don't you go ahead and fill out the form electronically and send it to me? So I'll make a decision within a matter of weeks.
Mhm.
But I filled out the form and it didn't go to your office, so I'm probably going to get dispatched for that. But we've done what we
helped you.
But we've worked with these people before.
So I'm not here
Are
to
you okay
get-
with that?
Well, so
Because
I'm
it's not
not
the kind of
here.
thing that it's not like a $75,000 or $100,000 from Hearst Foundation, which we've done it as well. But this is,
Yeah.
I mean, some of them are just that easy.
Uh-huh.
I'm just being honest.
Well, sure. So honestly, I'm not here to get in the way.
Okay.
If
good.
it happens and you don't need any support, go for it.
Okay.
The only concern I would
I'm
have.
disclosing.
Yeah. No. I'm not here to scold. I'm not. When I interviewed with Stan, and I don't know if you all know, he kind of sent me what had been the rules and regulations of foundation relations, and it seemed like this big policing document.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, if that's what you're hiring, I'm not your girl. That's not what
I'm
the
a bit of
idea
that
is
kind
to
of person,
remove
so I'm just-
barriers, not build barriers. There's plenty of barriers without me building. If you've got it and don't need help, the only concern I have is if there are 5 other people on campus that want to pursue it too,
Who's gonna go to the Headliners Foundation, which is newspaper?
You might be surprised. So that would be, if you think about it, if you could think about it, I would gratefully appreciate you saying, we've done this.
I'll send you a note today.
Well, and then I can just help hopefully make it easier. And then I will also read through it and remind you of the post-gift reporting date so we can stay in good graces with them in the future. I will send you, I'm not going to say, I'm sorry, Shanna will send you a reminder from our Foundation Relations email that says, reminder, there's a report coming up in 30 days, or this is
I
1 year
have no
past
problem
gift.
with that.
So anyway, that's how we hopefully can help you.
Yeah, I have no problems with that.
Well,
It's
and
just
I
that,
have one-
I mean, and
one
literally,
comment
it's
about
so
that,
easy
too.
to do it electronically versus,
Sure.
it's like,
Don't let us
So-
slow you down.
For metrics and goals, we are tracking asks on per college and unit. So
Okay.
the other advantage would be to let us know.
Oh, yeah, I'm
So that we
wondering.
know, because, we're heading in, data and metrics are everything. How many asks are coming from journalism? How many asks are, so make sure that you get the credit and recognition for doing all that, and we can at least capture that.
I just want the
in-
money to help the university.
I know, well, we want
and
the
our-
money too, but we want to
Okay.
demonstrate to the provost and the president that there is activity throughout this campus, and so
Okay.
we have to capture the scale of that activity.
We can only
Okay.
advocate, market, and help support what we know
Okay,
about.
right.
So my goal is to make sure that you see value in working with us, and that will be, yeah.
Question. For the foundations that are limited submission, what is the university looking for when they choose, like, which one they
Best
decide
fit.
to put?
Best fit. Absolutely. Nothing, I mean, there's no other, I like this person better. What is the most likely to get funded for the most money? And oftentimes, especially in this area, it comes with a relationship. So many of the large foundations, I can call them and say, what's going on? And they will say, you know what? Amon Carter Foundation says this. We've funded like 3 universities lately. It's not the right time. Hang on to it. They'll give me perspective on what's the right timing. We've done all this stuff this year. Do you have anything? Social services. So it's just fit. Absolutely. And if I have 2 good fits, and one's for 50,000 and one's for 5, we're gonna go for 50,000. And I'm kind of, what's the best fit? What's the most highly fundable? And what's the most strategic play for the university?
I think that's, I'm sorry,
No.
but I think that's a very valuable role, Susan, I really do. It may
I
be
pay
look
him
like-
a lot of money.
No,
to come to these and tell me all the
It looks like policing, but in the long term, you're taking the long-term perspective here, and the university's perspective on it, and I think that's totally appropriate, so.
Yeah.
There's a whole other area that really falls outside the whole university. I mean, we have the very highly structured research office process, where the grant is funded through the university. Then you have this foundation corporation, which is oftentimes departmental or even at an individual level, but yet there's a university relationship there. And then you have a whole set of faculty to funding entities that are completely outside the university. And I think if you somehow could bring that in as well, informally, I think you'd realize that there is a lot of research activity in this university when we look at the whole of it.
That right there is what gives us all heartburn, because I completely agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, off the record, can empathize with faculty, off the record as I'm being recorded. Never mind.
Thank you for your presentation. It was fantastic. Bravo.